Well, it's that time again, folks. Well, we've been in the big green container again. Actually, a friend of mine works at a print shop, and they had some old stuff that they were getting rid of. Kind of out. Some of it was outdated, some of it had some issues. So we took the old Ford and picked up the stuff. We got this big copier. If I can pull this thing out. This is an old Canon GP200 for all y'all that are into these kind of things. This only does black and white, I think he said, and there was an issue that would have costed more than it was worth. I've personally taken one of these apart before and got a lot of good stuff out of them, so I'm glad to have this for the club. So we got the beast took apart. It took several hours to take this thing apart, as much as we did, but we wanted to save everything out of it to show you what you could get out of something like this. I've got it all spread out. We're going to take an overhead view, and I'm going to explain kind of what we got and show you the extent of what was in this thing, because it's pretty amazing. We were very pleased with what we got out of this printer. This is our spread. This is one of the biggest scores out of one machine that we've got so far, and you can see some of the stuff. I've organized it into different things here, and I mean, just look at the amount of stuff you're getting out of this one copier printer. These are all springs. There's compression, extension, torsion springs. They're all here. These little E-clips. This thing was mainly held together with those. Bearings. There's both ball bearings and plain bearings. Bronze, plastic, tons of that stuff. Get all the solenoids. Just good old-fashioned electromagnetic solenoids out of this. There's 6 or 7 of those here. These are pretty knobs and buttons and some miscellaneous magnets could use for something. Fans, these little cooling fans like you see in a computer power supply. This little squirrel cage here was in there. Tons of hardware, screws. These counters, apparently this is the main counter we took out of it. This thing has apparently done 224,000 copies in its life. Speaker, plastic rollers, we got rubber rollers. These are all switches, pots, stuff like that. We kept some assemblies together, little rollers, but they're more like tracks. And we wanted to keep this together because we might make something out of this whole assembly. There's a light system here, some lights here. These are all gears, drive belts, drive mechanisms we took out of this. And I want to say that because all this come out of one machine, there's not a lot of different gear patterns here. So most of these work together, and a lot of them work with the motors that come out of this machine. We got stepper motors, we got regular DC motors, some outrunners, in-runners. You got these little guys came out of there. Some of these still have, we left the gearboxes attached. Just all shapes and sizes. These are interesting. These are actually clutches. They're not motors. And this one is a good example. Basically this piece here would be held, and this shaft would be spun by one of the motors. And when you power this, it would latch this gear to the shaft, where it would then spin the whole mechanism. So you can have one motor running several of these clutches and just engage this gear and run whatever you need to. So these were real interesting, and there was 6 of these in there, various sizes, but that's what they are. Tons of good metal rods to work with. And you can lathe these down if you're fortunate enough to have a lathe and make stuff, cut them. Some of these are stainless rods. Here's a couple more. This was a neat little belt drive we kept this whole assembly together. This has a lens and a fan and a few things in it. These drums, the fuser drums in here, the static drum, got some with rollers on them. We left these together just because we might use them like that. But this was great. This was one of the best finds. The electronics were a little skimpy in this. Not a ton of electronics, a lot of surface mount stuff. This is about all the boards, and they're not super populated with components that you can scavenge, but there were some good stuff in here. More mechanical stuff than electronic in this. We did get a good bit of wire, which we were kind of overflowing with wire. I just saved this more to show you kind of what would come out of this. And tons of metal, which I won't bore you with the pile of metal, but there was tons of metal to build stuff with also. I mean, this was great. This was a good score. This is one machine, and I think that printer is about somewhere around 20 years old now. It's a black and white only, but one machine. This is out of one machine. Alright, so that you saw how much stuff came out of that one printer. That's one printer. Now, I recommend this particular type of printer if you're just getting started, you're a maker, you're into electronics, you just want to piddle around. If you can go out and find one of these printers, not necessarily this particular brand, just one like it, this will give you a good start of supplies. You saw everything we got out of it. There's so much you can do with what's in this one printer. There's not a lot of danger involved in taking this apart. The one thing I would caution you about is the toner. And from what we learned about it, toner is actually like a powdered plastic with powdered carbon, so you don't want to breathe that at all. And it can get everywhere. So you want to have a vacuum nearby. Wear a dust mask if you can. Try to identify the toner areas and take those out and get them out of there before you start tearing into it. Because that's the other than the common dangers of springs flying out or you hit yourself with a hammer or screwdriver, that's really the only danger you're going to find in this machine. Great thing to start with. And as I said, the gears kind of work together. You got a lot of pieces that are going to work together right off from the get-go. We actually got this. I have a friend that works at a local printing company, and this machine, they didn't want to fix it. They had more updated equipment. They didn't want to fix it. They were happy for us to haul it off. And I want to thank them. That's Happy Jack Graphics up in Northeast Georgia. Go check them out on the web, and we'll put a link to that below. We really want to thank them for donating this to our club. But just check around. A lot of office buildings that do this kind of stuff, printing companies, schools, will have these laying around, and they're happy to get rid of them. They're just ready to toss them. They're outdated. This thing, like I said, was about 20 years old, the best we can figure, and it was only black and white, so just go look for this. This was one of the best things I can recommend for getting started. It's going to give you a good start. So just keep that in mind. I hope you liked the video. Please subscribe if you did like the video. We're going to do more like this. We have done more like this. Go back and check those out. And never stop learning, kids. Making copies today. Oh, look what it is. It's that time.